This episode is sponsored in part by PTZ Optics. Why need a cameraman when you can just do it yourself? Visit ptzoptics.com for more information. It's Thursday, so it's time for Broadcast Now, the show that talks about everything that has to do with broadcasting, live streaming, the internet, video, audio. Well, it's not a Radio Shack commercial, so I won't say a boatload of know-how. But, hey, I am joined in studio today. We had a busy day with live streaming today and broadcasting. We've got Mr. Greg Terry with us. Welcome, sir.
Thank you, my friend. Nice to be on your right side today.
I know.
I'm just trying to figure out, is Radio Shack still in business?
No.
Okay.
No.
Nice reference. That'll get us going good for broadcasting.
This is going to be weird because if I look at him, in order to look at him, I have to look the opposite way of him to make it look good. But he's literally sitting within arm's reach.
And I've got to look this way, and you're there.
So it's a little screwy, but we're gonna have a good time today. But we also have a special guest with us today. We have the lead engineer from PTZ Optics, Mr. Matt Davis. Welcome.
Thank you. Very glad to have an invite here and, play around, participate, chat about fun stuff.
Yeah, I was talking to Matt. I said, hey, do you want to join us for Broadcast Now? We rebooted this show, and I said it's a great way we could kind of nerd out about audio and video and all that good stuff. He's like, yeah, I'm up for it.
Yeah, I don't get an opportunity to do it very often.
Well, it's great to have you here. And guys in the chat room, we're glad you're here. In fact, Mr. Greg Terry has a few words for you.
Yeah, we're going to attempt to create more of a community environment. We want you to know that you're important to us. I know that Steven is streaming on 37 different platforms simultaneously. In fact, the key one being Periscope on the submarine that is sinking, but we are rolling on the Periscope as well. But with that said, and all joking aside, we want you to know that you're a valued member of this community. And I know, Steven, you had this going for a long time and are now going through the rebirth process. And it's going to be really exciting. I've met a lot of the guys that you have broadcasted with in the past, and this is just going to grow because there is a definite need for it. So as a part of that, we want to grow the community. We want to be personal. We want to be friendly. So, we're watching chats, and I see John Giovanni Preto in here. If I mashed your name, I'm sorry, but I think I nailed it. Dylan J. watching over on YouTube. John's on Facebook, and we'll have others jumping in. And we just want to say hello to you and thank you for being a part of the program.
Absolutely. And Marty McPadden, as you guys know, he's normally here with us. He's going to be joining us in a little bit. And so we're happy that you guys are all here. But let's start this off. Let's get going with talking about remote production, right? So obviously the theme we've been going through is with the pandemic. A lot of people had to switch to remote. And Matt, I wanted to kind of ask you, kind of get it kicked off here about this whole remote broadcasting thing, and should people be investing in a remote setup and not just be confined to a studio setup?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of value in people beginning to explore remote production. The thing that people need to understand is in tech, we call it kind of living on the bleeding edge, and we call it that for a reason, that it's not always easy. But we are at the stages where it's starting to get easier. There are now tools specifically built to help ease you into doing remote production. From things like Parsec that just does a wonderful job of remoting you into a PC, to, MediaLooks makes great solutions for public internet transversal. And then you can get down and play with things just like simple dynamic DNS. There's so many options available that I think it's a great time, an exciting time for people to really begin exploring. It's no longer you have to know all the bits and bytes going on. You really can just start playing with it at this point.
Well, what about you, Greg? I know we've done a lot of remote stuff, at the church and doing things like that. Do you see it as important as guys that were coming out of the pandemic? Guys have studios all over the place. They've been producing remotely. But now, people are still looking for that expertise. What's your thoughts?
Let's go backwards. First of all, Dominic Sano, welcome to the program. Thank you for your comment there. I would look at it, let's go not from the technical side for a moment. Let's go from the content creator side, or the one who through this pandemic has been building an audience, a following, a family online that is in addition to maybe your personal relationships through business or church or whatever you're doing, or your hobby. So are you interested in growing your community, or just being thankful for what you have in whatever type studio setup that you have? One of the most important things that I think remote broadcasting gives all of us is community building, retention, and timeliness. As you were saying, Stephen, last year during the pandemic, we did some worship outreaches. I'm also a musician. We went to the park. We were up in these amphitheaters. Stephen brought his mobile rig number 1, of which we have 2.0 coming this year. We did a big pandemic prayer event. We did a worship event. And first of all, the community from local that is following us, or nationally and internationally, was just blown away that we had the technology to do that. So it is vital. It is key. I'll talk about something else that pops up my brain in just a moment. But we'll start with that for now.
Awesome. And as you can see, we've got joining us. He always, I have a guy on Friday nights that has to make an entrance all the time. And so this guy always has to make an entrance. We've got Mr. Marty McPadden from podjam.tv. Thanks for joining us.
What are you talking about? Yeah, I mean, I got caught up with a session, but I'm thankful to be here now. I'm jealous of you and Greg being in the same location. This is great.
Oh, this is good. And when we got Matt, so now we got the full panel. Now the party can start now. So what about you, Marty? I mean, I know you're doing a lot of remote production. Before the pandemic, you were going out. Are you planning to do that now? Are you planning to go back out, and should people be invested just as much in a remote setup as a studio setup?
Yeah, I mean, it's funny. I caught a little bit of what Greg was saying, and he made some very, very good points. For me, during the pandemic, remote was really the only option because we weren't going out in the field. And I really made an effort over the past year to find ways to kind of work in the cloud. So I have I do a lot of working with podcasters and edited stuff. So I do recording sessions, both video and audio. And how do you do that? How do you be able to work in the cloud and also dealing with internet issues and things? So I've done a lot of that. It's funny you mentioned the physical events, and I know people are starting to get out there. I might know a little bit more next week. I already got a call from a client. Might be some rumblings here coming up, but I think we talked about this last week. I think the theme going forward is it's hybrid. There's always going to be that longing to do the physical event. We're human beings. We have to get together at some point. But also, I think that we've all discovered during this past year, us in the business, the value of doing remote production and being able to bring production and being able to bring content people that can't make it there physically, or for whatever reason, maybe your venue can only hold a certain amount of people, so you have capacity issues. Being digital and being online and being remote production, you can bring it to a wider audience. Greg made excellent points as far as community and community building, that type of thing. That's part of the physical event, but it's on steroids when you do remote production, for sure.
Well, let me ask Matt. Being in the camera business, did you guys feel the effect? This was obviously before I came on. Did you guys feel the effect that you couldn't keep up with the demand for cameras? Was the demand there that people just had this rush, like, oh my gosh, I need a camera now all of a sudden?
Yeah. I mean, some of the times it was a little, I felt like people were getting overly excited. I was very happy that they were buying the camera. It was wonderful. But when you have people reach out and say, hey, I bought your camera and sitting in front of me, what do I do? It's like, oh, you just bought this nice PTZ camera and you didn't know what your intent was with it. Okay, let's just start from the beginning, and we'll talk about YouTube, and we'll talk about all these ways you can use it and OBS. And so I think it was a little eye-opening that the amount of people that were just jumping in because they were excited, they had something they wanted to share. It was very tough though to keep up with the demand. It was a great learning experience. We learned how to cater even better to all sorts of levels of users, and it's really helped influence even our products moving forward, so that we can really try to make this easier. The real important thing is people have something that they care about, something that they really feel passionate, and for them to be able to actually share that with the world is so exciting. It's just trying to make it easier. The easier we can make it, the more people can stop thinking about every little thing that they're trying to make perfect or match like a television show, and they can really just share what's in their heart.
I agree. Greg, you wanted to go back to your thought you had earlier.
Yeah, I want to jump off now on Marty. Marty, nice to see you again. And Angel Hill is blowing up the chat here, boys. She must.
She knows us from the blast.
She knows you from a blast from the past. So it's a big hello from Angel Hill. So that is awesome. Yeah, so you have two sides of it. You've got the technological side, of course, cameras, internet, production, software, et cetera, et cetera. But I want to balance that out with the community side. Once you have established a schedule, whether you're streaming video games, you're a church, you're a business, you're doing a weekly podcast every Tuesday and Thursday at noon, whatever it may be. For me personally, I have a Tuesday night program, a Friday night program for news commentary. I have a Wednesday night music program, and now I have a Thursday night Broadcast Now program.
We're keeping you busy.
It's wonderful, but here's the deal. I also travel quite a bit, and, there are some lights at the end of the tunnel. I just returned from California. I was out there all weekend. I flew into Sacramento, had an event Saturday. Sunday, I had an event in Reno, Nevada. And then Monday morning, I'm back home in Pennsylvania. So these things are starting to happen again, but I still have a community that if I'm not there, they are blowing it up going, the name of my show is PG and Barney. Where's PG at? Is he sick? Is he offline? Whatever. And this community has evolved. So in February, I took only my first trip of the year. I was in Alabama doing an event, and it was on Friday night for the event. And I'm sitting there, Stephen, nervous. I'm going, okay, I've been building this momentum, and now I'm going to be offline tonight. I'm worried about my retention, my community. I want them to know I'm there. I actually popped my iPhone on, and I went live on Facebook. I greeted everybody. I came on 10, 15 minutes. I chatted with them. I went over to YouTube. I went live because I multi-stream, and it met the need. So regardless if you're running around with a $10,000 rig that you can stream in the middle of the desert, or even if you have your phone with you and you're building a community, it's absolutely vital that you have a retention rate and you have a commitment to the community that you're trying to build.
Well, and I think for me, that's been the hard misnomer, if you will. I have been working nonstop in the studio. I mean, that's what I do. My whole setup is in the studio. That's how I produce the video. And then when I was challenged to go out because these folks didn't know how to stream a play, they didn't know how to do graduation, they didn't know how to do. Now that challenged me because now I have to put something together that is the equivalent of my studio within means, right? Together, and Matt, we discussed this, like you're methodically thinking about, okay, every little thing, the way the wires bend inside the case. How can you make it so you show up 10 minutes, set up, be ready to rock and roll, and have that professional quality is not easy. And I mean, I spent, 3 months, Matt? I was sending you updates, how it looked,
Yep.
right?
Yeah. I mean, it was a fun thing to watch progressing. So I must admit, enjoyed, I guess, the difficulties you were going through a little bit.
Gee,
Just 'cause it
thanks.
was like, yeah, look at it. Well, you know, it was
I know.
really neat to see this thing coming together because some of the things, I mean, I spent a bunch of time in Pro AV with like rack building, and some of the things that you were bringing up, all this, some of it was like, yeah, I learned that, but other things, it was eye-opening to me to learn something new. Or it's like, yeah, I haven't ever tried to integrate that actually. You know, it was just, it was neat to watch it evolve, and then to see it actually in use. Wow. You know, it did the job. Fantastic. Other than
And
that little audio interface, I guess.
well, yeah, I mean, yeah, you have those issues, but outside of that, once we fixed that, after they burned it up, it worked. Uh, so, Marty, I know you had a portable rig you were going around, and what have you learned that you have to add to that yet?
Not yet. Now, it's funny because I haven't been on the road in over a year, and little birdie's telling me we might be getting on the road sooner than I thought. So I'm rethinking and making sure that I have everything together. But it would fit. I use the Wirecast Gear as my
Right.
main box.
Yep.
And so I would do basically my job was to do video signage at these parties that we were at. And so we would run live Instagram feeds, interspace with messaging from the client and from the sponsor, and we'd run it on screens and we take it. So it was great. So I had everything prepared, and what I would do before I would leave on the road at each gig is I would go through and I would actually set it up here in my studio and run through everything, make sure everything was working, make sure my Instagram feeds are working, all the stuff, kind of rehearse it and make sure everything was working fine. And then pack it all up and then have a plan to make sure I could set it up, make sure it was easy on site to deal with. And it reminded me, Stephen, of what you were telling your story about the rig that you were putting together. And it sort of intersects with the 90-10 rule. This is the 90% people don't see. And I remember going back and forth with you and kind of seeing your progress. And you were working on that thing for months, you know, and trying to get everything together, testing things. Does this work? All with the main idea of, okay, how do I make this easy when I take this on the road? So it's one thing to do it in your studio, have all day to set it up, test. But then once you get out there, and you certainly have pre-prod on the road, you have a certain crew call and you bring it in, you have a certain setup time and all that. But you have to make sure everything works. So you want to make sure that you rehearse that workflow well before you get on the road. So the way you designed that whole cart was, how do I make this easy, transportable? When I set up, is it going to work the same as it is in my studio? And are people that work with me, are they going to be able to help? Are they going to be able to work with it? But you have a defined workflow. And so and I know you told me stories of when you were doing the jobs at the high school.
Yes.
And I think they were amazed at how organized you were and how you had everything, had a place for everything and knew everything was going to go, that you were able to get other people to help. And it was a smooth operation because you did all that work ahead of time. And that's stuff that people never see. But that is key if you want a successful production, especially if you bring it on the road.
And before we get to that, I'm gonna actually show that for folks that are kind of wondering, like, what does the mobile rig look like? Marty's been working in his own. Greg, do you notice something about Marty's video here? If you look, Marty's video now has a backlight on the curtain from last week.
Not just a backlight. He's got uplight.
That's what I'm saying. He's got the uplight going on that he didn't have that.
And you guys are way too kind. I mean, this is like bare bones.
Listen, we know you're in your bathroom in front of the shower curtain, but everything's good. Don't worry about it. We're golden.
It's all good.
I mean, Greg, Stephen, I had the green screen, I had the whole setup, and you're getting me to get in. I'm talking about, folks, if you're watching this, I'm putting it out there because you're holding me accountable, because hopefully you'll see me progress and get my studio back in gear and get all the fancy stuff going. So
this is the guy that worked for ESPN for over 20 years. Let's just put that out there right now, all right?
I know. But I mean, it's funny because this past year it's been a lot of behind the scenes work. I love doing this stuff, but I haven't been on camera in like Steven, it must be like over a year since we've been doing Broadcast Now. So
Oh, it's been 5
you
years
guys
for
are
this.
forcing me. Like I want to get up to Greg's level. I mean, Greg's doing a great job. You know, like he's coming out there. He's out there. He's doing his thing. But I want to get to his level. But yeah, I mean, that's what's great about this community is we all kind of help each other. We all kind of like, it's almost like when you go to a gym and work out, you got a workout buddy, you know, and you're all kind of forcing each other and you get making each other better, you know. So yeah, so you notice so yeah, that's a small little, but it's going to get way better over time, believe me. So.
Let's take we have guys, you definitely want to stick around. We've got a really cool tip for you later on about with microphones. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to play this video and kind of walk you through. This is the mobile setup. I'm actually using an X Keys controller with vMix with about 5 cameras that I've got. I've got one of the cameras on the slider, which is the PTZ Optics EPTZ. It's not in this video because I did it before I thought about setting it up. I have that 32-inch TV there with a vMix multi-view out, and then I also have the YOLO box doubling as a monitor for the PTZ Optics SuperJoy, and Chris was controlling the audio from that. There is the PreSonus audio interface along with the LiveView Solo that's built into the box. I have a 8-core PC in there, and then there's a 30X PTZ Optics camera. I'm running them solely over PoE. There's no other plug. There's no HDMI, SDI. It's all over PoE using NDI. 230X is out in the crowd. And then up on the stage, what I did was I took 220X, again, PoE, NDI, PTZ Optics cameras, and then I put up wireless Rode microphones with Sennheiser attachments that we were able to catch the ambient noise from the stage, which, you know, gave it a lot of, you know, pizzazz, I guess. But all the wires in the back that were going to be problematic from closing that door, I put elbow connectors on them. I bought the cables. I didn't put attachments. But it worked really good, despite, as Greg said, blowing up the first audio interface that we had. But everything just kind of came together. I packed it in with a router, a PoE switch. Everything was self-contained. I literally took one plug, plugged it in, plugged the monitor in, plugged the monitor cables were already into the unit, plugged the TV into the power. I think I only used 2 power ports on the attachment that I have. Everything else, I mean, literally by myself I could set up in 40 minutes, and that's carrying things in for like 10-15 minutes. But I'd say 20 minutes tops. I have everything up and running. vMix is ready to go. I was impressed by that, you know, personally. So,
you know, my favorite part of that whole setup is the lack of cables and using the PoE.
Yes.
And using the IP, you know, that, you know, NDI, you know, and that's a whole new technology for people. I mean, you were used to be the king of SDI for a long time. So it's amazing, and I would imagine that's got to be easier on the road.
I blame Matt. I blame Matt for that because he really.
I'll take the blame.
I'm very, very big on the SDI, and I still use it in the studio. But I had even Matt was talking to him this week. I said, you know, if I redo this, if I go full NDI, I'm going to create a separate network just for NDI. And if I go Dante Audio, I'm going to do the same thing, create another separate network. And it sounds overkill. But as we get in through these shows and we start digging into some of the stuff, you'll understand why, and I can go through my reasoning as to why I do that. But, you know, I was glad Matt was kind of like, yeah, just take it and run it NDI. And you know, I started thinking about it. I was like, yeah, you know, just one cable. And there was no lip sync issues. He watched the final product of the production. I mean, it for all intents and purposes, it looked phenomenal. For what it was.
I left that running in my office for way too long. People were constantly poking their heads in. They're like, "What are you doing in there? What are you watching?" But yeah, it was really neat to see the entire mobile studio all run off of NDI,
Yes.
and it looked great. It sounded great. Kudos to you, Stephen, on that one.
Well, I think it's the power of static IP, right? So you can set the IPs, you just plug it in, you forget it, and you know, I alluded with the SuperJoy, I can have a group here in my studio with all my cameras. I hit group 2. I was telling Greg earlier, hit group 2, plug it into my mobile rig, and I'm up and going. There's no configuring on the road. Make life easier, but Greg, I know that's what you're trying to get to too. Just seamless, go in, flip some switches, and you're
Well,
rock and rolling.
Today in the worship, we had the worship summit for PTZ Optics. It was a great event. I was honored to speak at that. And one of the things I was talking about was how to handle the pressure of not only ministry, but also of the technology side. And, I'm here today. I've been to Steven's studio many times. We have a great time. We're also friends, live about 30 minutes apart. But the reality is we were literally 90 minutes ago on an entirely different stream, entirely different platform, going into a Zoom call. And then we literally just relaxed for a while. And I'm going, Steven, we have another program at 6. We ready? Oh, yeah, everything's ready. All I got to do is hit the button. Why? Because the process is in place and it's ready. So it is key that if you even have a mobile rig, you're rolling on, you're rolling in, you're trying to do something out on the road, high school, whatever the location may be, whatever you're doing, your process must be the same every time. Because when you have the process, exactly, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, if you have a hiccup, you typically can find the hiccup because when you're out on the road, there's very few backup systems. Audio interface burning up.
Well, I think I told Matt about this. I don't know if I told you, Marty, but the director at the time, she goes,
Is that important?
She goes,
Oh, we got to hear this.
She
Come
goes,
on.
the sound when it burned up, because it didn't just burn up the audio interface. So let's state that. It also, we went into the sound card because we just thought, Chris, my buddy, he thought, well, maybe, it was making some noise, the audio interface, whatever. It's 10 years old. Okay, I'll give him the benefit of the doubt. Maybe that just went bad. So we plugged it into the sound card. Well, within 15 seconds, that was the end of the sound card. And the director goes, do you need a sound card? I'm like, do you need audio in your production? And she's like, yeah. I'm like, I need a sound card. She goes, well, don't you carry an extra one with you?
Oh, boy.
But that's where people are at, though.
I didn't know how to answer that one.
Didn't you also get the question, you mean if there are no microphones, nobody will hear it?
Oh, yeah, we can get
That's
to
a
that
whole
one.
nother story.
So I went out, I got about 4 of these USB microphone, or these USB sound cards, and I carry a few of them. And I went up to her the next day when I went back because I felt bad because I didn't want to leave them high and dry after doing all that. I said, I got a spare sound card. Actually, I've got 2. Actually, I've got 3. And she goes, well, it doesn't do you any good last night now, does it? I was just kind of like, okay. But I went to do the Hubbard School one, the remote production. And we're telling you guys this because we're trying to make you guys think if you go out and do these remote productions. So I want to stress that. It's not just about, hey, let's talk about remote production. Because in my studio, it's my contained environment. I created it. I built it. I wired it. I networked it. I understand pretty much if something breaks, I know how to fix it. When you're out on the road, you have no control over the audio because they have a sound guy that comes in and you're tapping into their audio system. Well, I get there, and Chris and I, who's also an audio guru, he's phenomenal at audio. He goes to me, so do they have somebody come in audio? Yep. So all they had to do is give us 2 XLRs, plug them in. We're good to go. So I walk down, and they have instruments in a pit. And I says to the director, I said, hey, where's the microphones for the instruments? She goes, well, we don't need it. You can hear it. I says, yeah, but we are recording this, and it is going to be streamed. I says, so how do you expect the online audience to hear this? And she's like, well, the microphones on the kids will pick it up. I'm like, mm-mm. I'm like, they will be muting those microphones when they're not talking. And I said, they'll also have compressors, limiters, and gates on those to not pick up background noise. And she goes, she didn't believe me. Chris had her put on headphones. We had him do a number and then play. She's like, you can't hear the instruments. And we're like, yeah. So Chris and I, he goes, do you have your wireless? I'm like, yeah. So I literally took him and put him as close to the piano player as I could. Right? And just laid them on the arms because they didn't even have boom arms. And so we did the best we can. Chris mixed the audio. He put it in his head. And it sounded like we mic'd it good. It really did. It sounded like, but she couldn't put 2 and 2 together. And so I was glad Chris had a pile of wires with him, which we would have been dead in the water with because they didn't have any wires. They had no way of getting us audio.
Chris's ears must have been burning. He just
Was
jumped
it?
in the chat.
Oh, is he? Oh,
Look at him. Ha, ha, ha,
he wrote,
ha,
ha.
Also, I'm figuring out that Brad Llewellyn likes pizza from Pizza Joe's and my funky drinks on my program.
Oh, yeah.
And Walter P. is loving, I would say Perot. I don't want to mess your name up, sir. Loving Pizza Joe's. So
does Stephen, does Greg know about Pizza Joe's?
He knows about Pizza Joe's because, you know, he's in the area, but he doesn't know about the commercial, which everybody. No. How many of you guys want me to bring that commercial back? They just like it because it's funny. I can bring it back.
Bring it back. I don't even know what you're talking about.
It's legendary.
But these are things that I think a lot of people just don't take into consideration when you go out. Like now I've learned I really should bring an extra set of cables, even though it's not really my responsibility.
That's Chris's.
It's Chris. Yeah. You know, we're supposed to actually do a band concert, a jazz concert, Saturday or Sunday night. That's local for the high school. And assuming that my pool guy gets here early enough to deliver the water for the pool, we're going to be doing that at 6 o'clock. But I don't know what to expect with that. I really don't.
That's going to be a tough one.
I'm just going to probably put the Rode mics up or something. I don't know. But you guys got to think about this stuff when you go out and do remote production. It's not about just spending money or having high-end gear. It's like you got to plan all this stuff out. I mean, there's days I'm sitting there scratching my head going, did I get everything? Did I bring a backup of everything I need?
Steven,
you know,
go ahead. Go ahead, Marty. No, go ahead.
It's, you know, is a lot of it is the pre-prod, you know, and especially if you're getting into this for the first time, especially if you're doing this on a professional level, it's all the stuff you don't see. And do not assume, even like Steven, the story of the audio, especially the audio board, a lot of people can go in there and assume, oh, someone's running an audio board, they kind of know what they're doing, they're prepared, don't assume any of that stuff, you know, and especially with internet, you go right down on the list of all the stuff you're doing. And I know you know how to approach this, but you can't assume anything. The more you can communicate with the venue and have your list of questions, the better it is. At least you know going in what the deal is, you know. And like a lot of the stuff we do, we don't have the luxury of doing a site survey, so we're relying on our client to do that.
Oh,
so lots of times what I'm planning on is, and you've been to one of our events.
But I mean, I scoped the event out ahead of time, and I asked the guy, "Can you get me a mix minus?" The guy looked at me cross-eyed, and like, meanwhile, he's their audio IT guy.
Yep.
Matt, he's the same guy I told you that said if I hooked up my router to his network, it was going to take it down.
Ooh.
That's the guy. Yeah, that was
so
the guy.
An it guy.
Yeah. So back to what you're saying, Marty. But no, that I did survey. Like I actually try to do my due diligence.
Yep. Yeah, and that's, if you can, definitely do the site survey. And that's the thing that a lot of clients don't understand. That's the struggle I have, is making them understand why you're doing all this stuff before the actual event. And the reason is if you want your event to go off without a hitch and smoothly without issues, you go through and you rehearse and you ask it's funny, people that aren't in the industry, a lot of these questions, a lot of these workflows seem redundant. They seem, why do we have to do that? Why do we have to plan this? Why do we have to check that? Well, because if you don't, you're going to have issues down the road. And, you know, and also a lot of the stuff that we do, there's a lot of things in venues that we go into we don't have any control over. So a lot, and luckily, normally I'm not live streaming, I'm doing in-house stuff, but I'm also thinking about that stuff. So lots of times when I'm working with my client, I've actually got to the point where we talk directly with the AV rental places that we deal with. And I say, well, ask them about this. We're going to make sure that they have, if they're going to do cable runs, I need an HDMI, make sure they have the right amplifiers, make sure they can do a long cable run that give me HDMI, because, you know, long HDMI runs, you have problems, whatever you need to do. And I worked with a lot of different rental houses. Some are really good. They're on their game. You're ready to go. Some are, you never know what you're going to get. And if you get one of those, then you always have to have plan B, plan C ready to go, and at least do something. So I always have a fallback. And I know, Stephen, you do in your productions. at the bare minimum what I can do. If we have issues, what do we have issues with this, and this? Rehearse it, ready to go. But yeah, all that work, and I can't stress enough, not only the technical, but the communication. Make sure you know who your AV people are. Make sure you know who in the like if you go in a hotel or a conference venue. Make sure you know the technical people there, especially if you have to use internet. I mean, one thing I would say is don't rely on in-house internet. Make sure that you have your own way to get, because I bring my own hotspots.
Oh,
Like
yeah.
Greg was mentioning that he went live from his phone, and he had full control over that. So if so I bring a hotspot. I make sure that I can, if I have no internet, can I get a signal out? Can I have my own network? Stephen, you have your own network with the IP stuff that you're doing. You don't rely on the venue, and then the venue's kind of the backup.
Yeah.
But always make sure that you have that redundancy in whatever you do, because there's 8 million things that can go wrong, and just make sure you play it out
let me
well
jump-
ahead of time.
Yeah, I was going to get Greg's response, but Matt, I want you to start
Yep.
thinking about some new technology that people should think about to make this remote live streaming even easier that you could share with everybody here. Go ahead, Greg. I'm sorry.
Well, let me just jump on the remote thing there for a second and jump off of Marty. When you are going to a school, B, a university, C, a hotel conference center. These are your major things where you would have a remote setup. Never trust their internet. I'm telling you, I do lots of hotel conference events, and so many times I've been to the event, got off an airplane, rolled in, they're supposed to be ready. I go in and do my stuff. The technical's supposed to be ready. It's not ready. B, now we're trying to get an internet connection. And here's the thing about these hotel conference centers. Well, the company that set this up did not pay for the premium internet, so you have no access to the internet. Well, where's your technical guy? Well, they went home for the day.
Yep.
Well, can you call them? No. Can you get internet? Well, no. And just to bounce off what you're saying there, Marty. So let's and there's so many people in here geeking out in the chat. We're so happy you're geeking out in the chat. Nerds rule. But here's the deal. Let's say now you're not a Marty. You're not a Steven. You're a guy streaming maybe like I do. I've fortunately been blessed through a relationship with Steven, and now PTZ Optics, and now new friends like Marty. So there's all kind of good things happening for me. And of course, my audio backside with Chris, who was just in the chat here. Honestly, Chris makes everything happen for me between him and Steven. I've got to take care of the content. These guys take care of me, and they do an amazing job. But if you're by yourself and you're going, okay, this is awesome, I'm geeking out, but I don't have Steven's setup. I don't have the resources to get that. What can I do? And, Marty mentioned, hey, hit your phone. You're in control of it. But I just thought of something. Right now, I'm training my 13-year-old son on vMix. My daughter, 19, is getting familiar with vMix. So let's say I'm out and I want to do a pretty good job program, even remotely. Well, all I would need to do is, as a remote broadcaster, is fire up my vMix, have my son sit there and switch it, and I vMix call in. There's nothing here. I've got my iPhone. I'm vMixing in, and I'm running my whole production through my 13-year-old son. If I had some big event I wanted to do, would I trust that? Probably so. But to be honest, I would then just call my buddy Steven, whom I have relationship with, and say, Steven, I'm out of town, but this is a big deal. I need to be on live tonight. If he's not streaming, he would be helping me. So there's always an answer. There's always an answer.
So just because it was driving me nuts, now we can look at each other,
thank
and it
you.
looks good on the double box.
I'm
I
sitting there
switched.
going, I can't look
I'm sorry.
this way.
I'm like sitting there. Yeah, I know it wasn't bothering anybody else. It was bothering me. So I was like, on the fly here, I'm like, he's looking over at me, and I'm like, yeah, how you doing?
Well, how am I supposed to be in studio and not look at you?
Yeah, it works. But you're right. That's a great way to do vMix call. In fact, we have a really unique way that we're going to do the Hubbard Memorial Day celebration. For me to give back to the servicemen and women who have died for our freedoms, I volunteered to go in and do it for the folks that are still a little, not sure about going out, and that's completely fine. We're going to have my buddy, who also does some live streaming, He's going to do a vMix call with his setup. He has a PTZ camera with a laptop. He's going to go to the cemetery using a hotspot, send me a vMix call
Nice.
where I'm going to be on by the War Memorial, which is across town, connected to a hardwire internet, bring that vMix call in, so we almost do like a live on location where he's there, they're saluting the flag, they're calling the names out, and we're able to do that, you know, and bring that in, and then when he's done, he's just going to cut back to me, and we'll pick up the procession of the mayor, and I think it's the seniors, one of the seniors speak, and they go through, do the roll call, shoot the firearm off for every name that goes off, and which is going to be innovational because we haven't done that ever. So,
well, think about this. Tomorrow
it's going to be
night,
pretty cool.
Tomorrow night on my program, I'm having a remote guest.
Right.
And this is going to be, I hit this so hard on my Tuesday night program. I said, you do not want to miss it. I was just in Nevada. My guest tomorrow night, listen, remote calling in on vMix on an iPhone is a 98-year-old World War II veteran whose memory is perfect. He is going to talk about his experiences. He grew up in the Oklahoma Dust Bowl. This gentleman is calling in with, so basically in his home in
He'll be on his
Nevada,
phone. Yeah.
he's got a remote studio.
Yeah.
Pulling into me. It's limitless what we can do.
So
Yeah, Stephen, I just want to point out real quick, echo kind of what you went through there. And people watching, hopefully they notice what you just did, is you just literally played out that workflow. And also you getting very creative as far as the technology. You have a lot of things in your toolbox. And it's not necessarily about getting the one size fits all tool. It's
Right.
not like, and I've had this discussion with people. We'll use vMix for an example. It's not like you can just, if you're new to this, not like you're going to buy vMix and automatically be a superstar live streamer producer, right? You have to practice it, but you can get there, you can start. But Stephen, you've been doing this for a long time. You have all the tools. You've accumulated these tools in the toolbox, and more on the way. And it's not necessarily about doing one single tool and one size fits all, and you're ready to go. It's more about, for each job, how do you best use your tools? It's like a carpenter. Carpenters have multiple types of hammers for different jobs. How do they put it together? So what you just did there is you described, okay, I've got two different sites. I want to bring it together. I'll be on remote for both of them. How do I bring this together? Oh, I can use vMix call. I can bring it in. But you're already mapping out the workflow. And well in advance of when you get on remote, this is how we're going to do it. You could have it written out, but you've already rehearsed it so that when you get out there and you're already working with a partner at another location, instantly okay, step one, we know what to do. We know what to test. And that way, and I've seen your product. I think last year you did something similar, and it was fantastic what you did.
Last year we only did it with like one or two cameras.
Exactly, but that was the start.
A lot.
But this kind of stuff is, regardless of what's happening with the pandemic, it's digital is there. We're here. What's great is, now we can certainly do physical events, but what's great about this technology is now you can bring people in that may not be able to, they may be far away. They may just not be able to travel. There might be a capacity issue. And then Stephen, with your knowledge and your production skills, you're able to bring people in. And Greg, the same thing. I mean, you're talking about community, which is very true. You're able to bring people in. But the key is you have to rehearse that workflow. You have to have that workflow worked out ahead of time. And then that's the reason why you're going to have a nice, smooth production on Memorial Day and bring that nice production to everybody.
Matt, last week we kind of addressed NDI. We said that was kind of like the future for everything, for doing this type of stuff. What are some of the other things that people should really be paying attention to from your point of view, as not a producer, as not a broadcaster, but from the engineering side? What technologies should people be paying attention to, because it's going to make their workflow and job that much easier?
There's a lot of things, but I think more of what I'm seeing coming out, some of it in cruder forms, but there's a lot more automation that's available to basic users. You don't need to be reaching for $100,000 pieces of equipment anymore to start automating more of your setups. And I think it's really getting to a neat point, where we're starting to explore, as I think some of you gentlemen might have played with a little bit, the cameras that we're making anymore, some of them, just based on where you're located, can start to issue scene switches. They can start to change your production so that you really could attempt a one-man band type of scenario if you really, really wanted to. And this all goes into just, yet again, I feel like when people are comfortable, they're not thinking too much about the production. They're really able to be natural. And that's just something that is great to see on a live stream, on recordings. When it's overacted because they're uncomfortable. It's unfortunate because it's, I guess this is where I'd boil it back down to Greg, how you pulled out the cell phone to just go live. That is such a beautiful thing. Everybody should always keep that in mind, that, even if you have these giant elaborate setups, the mobile rig like Steven's got, we all pretty much at this point have a cell phone in our pocket that if everything else goes wrong, we do have a way to kind of fill in that gap and make things still happen. There's no reason that you need to always rely on the super high-end gear. I can say, yet again, I never did the video production. I did a couple years of concert photography and wound up finding that, 9 times out of 10, having that cell phone on me saved me. There were just things that would go wrong with the cameras or the lenses, or, there'd be enough people up there that somebody would break your lens and, oh, great, that was the one I needed to get these specific shots. But again, it's being willing to rely on something that you didn't plan on having to use. So yet again, though, to circle back around, I think the automation is kind of one of the most beautiful things occurring. It's a fun thing to explore. It's something that, you can really, really geek out on if you want to and go really elaborate. Some of John Mahoney's shows really dive into some amazing scripting things that you can do to automate your productions. It with NDI added in, you now get this beautiful extra layer of it keeps improving. And not only does it get better, but more and more tool sets are being built so that it connects more and more of the world, more ways to communicate, more ways to adapt your video, to make your video do new things that it could never do before. With traditional switchers and equipment, that type of fast-paced change it was impossible. So I think it's an exciting time to be watching what this is doing to the market.
And we're going to demonstrate on a future episode the Simple Track 2. I actually have it set up here as one of the cameras that Matt's talking about, that I can actually trigger lower thirds. I can trigger scene switches, as he stated. I can cause it to go black, kill the audio just by going to a certain area in my studio.
You know what we can do?
Pretty awesome.
For that episode, I could actually remote in from the church, and we can see it live in action.
Do it there?
Yeah, I'll remote in from the church, a full stage.
You can do it
Track
there.
2 rolling.
Got it right here.
Oh, we'll be cooking,
right
man.
Here. So there's a lot of things that we can do with that automation and show you, like with macros inside. I'm glad he said that, because I've been diving more and more into macros. If you guys haven't done that, you need to look at macros. I know, like you said, vMix can do that. TriCaster can do it. I believe OBS can do it to an extent.
Blackmagic can do it.
Blackmagic can do it.
Yep.
So there's a lot of options.
So before I know we have our tip of the week to show as well.
Yes.
But I want to jump off what Marty said for a moment and what Mark said for a moment. And Steven, I just want to give you some kudos. You're early in this thing rolling again, but these guys are talking about technology. Marty was specifically talking about your toolboxes, your tools available, and knowing how to use your tools.
Yep.
You guys are remotely plugged in. I happen to be here in the studio with him tonight, and just a simple thing like him switching our camera views while we're live streaming so we could look at each other. I'm sitting here tonight watching this guy roll TriCaster, joysticks, stream decks.
Chat room.
Carry on the host of the program, shoot the questions. He's re-switching, video feeds, video shoots. We're communicating on the side when you guys are up on the screen. There's all kind of stuff going on, and it's seamless. Why? Because he's a master of his tools. You would want a mechanic work on your engine that knows how to use the tools. So This is absolutely key. I mean, so thanks to you, Stephen. Kudos to you, man. It is like a I'm watching Da Vinci over here.
No.
Painting the
Come
Sistine
on
Chapel.
now.
Come on.
And I'll embarrass him even more. I threw a curveball at him. Tell him, oh, Steven, by the way, I might be either really right before the show goes on or right after. I got a session right up to 6 o'clock. And sure enough, I text him, I'm going to come in late. It's like as seamless as all get out. It's like I come in, and I know I'm waiting. That he's gonna bring me in. It's like
I said to Greg and Matt before we got on. I says, let's see how seamless I can get him on there. And Matt's like, oh, I got faith. It'll be good. And I'm like,
I know
at least
you
one
took
of
it as
us
a
has.
challenge. I go, then watch this guy.
Yeah, but what you guys didn't see, you're calling in. This is what he said, Marty, and kudos to you. He goes, if anybody's rolling in late, I trust Marty.
That's
Okay,
exactly what
I
I
know
said.
he's got a shower curtain and uplight. It's gonna be golden. Secondly, all he did was he said, Greg, lean forward. I need to check a screen. And that's the truth. I lean forward. He checks out his neural net monitor over here. He sees you. He sees the audio. He knows it's ready to go. There was no questions. He's back doing what he's doing. It's amazing.
It comes from, and people just think you can go on here. And I want to say before we get to the tip about the cell phone, right? And you guys know in the past I've been really, really hard on people using cell phones. But I think there's some methods to the madness behind it. If people would learn basic skills with the cell phone instead of doing like this, get a tripod, set it up, like you said, if you're on location, or somebody else, if you're on location, there's ways to adopt professional ways of doing things to simplicity. You don't, like Matt said, you don't have to go out. You got the cell phone in your pocket, pull it out. But don't just stand there and hold it and you're trying to watch the Eiffel Tower because you're out in Paris, because some guy's up there attempting to bungee jump off of it. I don't know. And you want to get it on CNN or Fox. Yeah. Put it on I mean, come on. You guys got those selfie sticks. Don't tell me you don't. I know a lot of you guys carry those selfie. Even something like that. Like, I mean, there's ways to do it.
I have to say, the level of technology in these, I mean, I had a DSLR. I sold it like 5 or 7 years ago. And this is an iPhone 12 Pro Max. I mean, they have plenty on the Android side, so if you like that. But the level of technology and quality in these things, they're shooting feature films with cell phones, or at least shooting certain shots that you can't get a big camera rig in. And like you said, Stephen, if you only learn basic camera technique and framing and lighting, the sensor and the technology and the image processing in these devices are unbelievable, and you can get incredible quality just by you. Don't get don't get distracted by it's just a cell phone, because this thing's a top flight camera video. I mean, this is 4K. I mean, what I'm amazed at is because the sensors are so small. Normally with pro gear, you need large sensors to get any kind of image quality. But the image processing on these devices is so advanced that you can get incredible image quality from very, very tiny sensors and very tiny pixels. So don't let that distract you. Learn technique, learn all the boring stuff, and you'll get really good quality video and audio.
Kongs R Us has a great question, and he's stealing my topic for next week's show, but we're not going to answer that today. But that is going to be what next week we're going to talk about, is a checklist for bringing in your incoming guests. And I think everybody on this panel could absolutely contribute to this topic. So Kongs R Us didn't know we were going to talk about that next week, but that is on the docket to talk about, because I know it's something that a lot of people struggle with. Is what do we require? What do we recommend? And I'll kind of get into my thoughts, and Marty can add his and Greg, and if Jeff's with us next week, we'll get into that.
That's called the tease. That's called the tease in the business.
That's a tease. Yes, it's a good segue.
And Kongs will be here.
And Kongs will be here.
Yes, he will.
So we've got a tip for you for this week here, and it's a 3-minute. Greg and I shot earlier, and you can see the difference in lighting from what we are now, because again, learning how the cameras can adapt to the lighting and how you can set them. We're going to show you mic technique if you're using a microphone like we have in front of us, not a lavalier, but a dynamic microphone. If you're not sure what a dynamic microphone is, go back and watch, what was it, last week or the week before, versus condenser. So take a look at this, and this might help you as far as mic proximity. All right, guys, so I'm here with Greg Terry, and we're going to be talking about on Broadcast Now today the tip of the week. And as you can see, Greg's got a standard desktop microphone, the Heil PR40. But what I wanted him to demonstrate, because you can't always tell when you're looking at the camera, is the proximity that you want to have with a dynamic microphone. So, Greg, where would you normally sit when you're talking?
Typically where I'm sitting is about where I'm at right now, 3, 4, 5 inches away from this microphone. Any microphones like this, you typically, a comparable one would be, you see all the time on streamers, is a Shure SM7B. So you're typically going to be speaking directly in the mic. The advantage of this microphone is that it's knocking down a lot of the outside noise that could be gathered from other things going on in your studio. A fan spinning on a computer, an air conditioner running, the dog barking, whatever it may be. You're getting directional audio directly into the microphone, but the proximity effect. So if you're live streaming, you want to draw attention to something. I do a news program twice a week on Tuesdays and Fridays, and sometimes for effect, I want that proximity effect, meaning the further away I get, the more hollow, less power. But if I want to draw attention to a certain point in a stream, an answer to a question, or somebody did something, I'm going, you know what, I have to disagree with that. I'm then going to use the proximity effect to accentuate my point. I'm going to jump down to the microphone and say, you know, I do not like that. Now, you saw me go in, but if you were listening on the stream, that not would have boomed, and your viewers go, oh, he's making a point. Proximity effect, golden.
And you have to remember that, too, when you're setting up a gate, a noise gate, and also any kind of compression and limiter and things like that. And you'll notice here on the PR40, there's actually a sweet spot mark where they actually mark it. I'm going to kind of come in here, you guys can see it, where it shows you where the sweet spot is on that microphone. If you notice, I have it at the bottom, and you watched when Greg went in, he went for the bottom of the mic, and that's the natural response of going in tight. And so when we look at the stream, and I'm just going to pan over here real quick because we're getting ready to do a presentation, it looks like Greg's right up on that mic. Well, in actuality, you're seeing he's only, you know, about 2 to 3 inches away. So that's your quick tip for this week.
Here, on top of that tip, if you're running these type of microphones, for example, Shure SM7B again, gain coming into your stream is vitally important, even for proximity effect or getting the proper audio. So many times you will need a gain booster like a Cloudlifter CL1 or some other type, and there's tons of them out there, but make sure to get the best out of your microphone, you're getting the proper amount of gain into your system.
And understand the difference between dynamic and condenser. And we'll do another tip sometime on condensers. So, again, back to the guys in the studio. I don't know what was funnier, but that look that you just gave there at the end of that video.
You got to have a little entertainment. We're talking about microphones and proximity effects.
Well, hopefully that hopefully that gives people a little bit of a tip for how to set your microphone, because it's hard. Like when you see us sitting like this and you see it, you think we're like eating these microphones, but we're not.
No.
But it looks that way. So Rexerso says, yeah, I have the ATR 2020, which is good. ATR 2100 is another one. Each week we're going to try to do a tip of the week, just little things, nuances that we can, that we think that might trip people up. If you're unsure about something, just like Kongs or us did, feed us, throw it in the chat room. If you're watching this on reruns, throw it in the chat room. If I don't know, we'll get Matt back up here. We'll put him in the hot seat, you know, or we'll get somebody else that knows. I mean, I don't know everything. Greg, Marty, we don't all know everything, but we'll at least get the people on the show that can answer that stuff intelligently. Maybe we'll have to get Chris on to talk audio.
We'll get Chris on, and
yeah,
I think in the future we may have to get my Intel buddy engineer on. You get into that computer technology, broadcasting stuff, he would be a monster, dude.
We can definitely.
You talking about geeking out?
Yeah.
Good grief.
Yeah, the ATR 2100. We have actually, Greg and I are using the PR40s in studio right now. So I'm trying to look through. I really like the PR40. That's been my mic of choice. In fact, when I tried switching microphones, people used to say, "Go back to your other microphone, please." When I used a desktop mic, and
J.S. Gilbert likes it.
Yes, they're
Mhm.
I like these microphones, and believe it or not, like a lot of times people use these pop filter screens, and it's mainly because I use this to set up for proximity. Again, I know that I can go right to that, and I have it
I'm
close,
hearing it.
so I can go without having any kind of essing or any kind of like on my
Plosives. Yeah.
yeah. So I set that up for my voice. So if somebody sat down, Greg might be able to get closer. It's just how he enunciates. So there's different techniques. I use it as a spacer. That's all I use it for. I know I'm not going to pop my P's or and things like that. So there's tips, but I what cracks me up, if you watch last week's episode, we talked about or was it the week before, where we talked to Jeff Rainwater because he had a mic sock on it and he had the pop filter. And we're like, dude, you're actually killing your audio. You don't want to do that.
I will quickly add this: two things on mics. One, they're like shoes.
Yes.
It's not one size fits all. It's what fits your voice
Mhm.
and your technique. And two, it's like a musical instrument. You have to practice technique. It's not like you can just set up a mic and start talking. I work with a lot of podcasters and doing recording sessions, and a lot of people that just are not used to it. And you coach them through it, and I think they're surprised. Oh yeah, it's like you actually have to learn this stuff. Yeah, it's not something that's natural. Like I have my setting my mic, how you talk, avoiding the S's, avoiding the plosives, all that stuff. The right distance. It just takes practice.
Yes.
And recording yourself, and I would say if you're any kind of doing a show, practice. Record yourself, and you'll get better at it. But it's not something that's natural at any stretch.
And I know Steven doesn't like it, but there are a lot of tools available. I'm a big VST plugin guy that revolutionizes and helps. It's simple. It's easy.
Well, it's not that I don't like it.
Well, I know you don't like it, but you
It's
won't even
because-
let one walk through the door.
It's because I'm using an audio mixer. I can't really utilize it.
Oh, we're getting there. We're
But
going to
what?
figure it
No.
out. You got to have some plugins. You got to be able to say on stream, hey, I got plugins.
No, it's funny because Matt, remember when we were talking about potato and banana?
Yeah, yeah.
So wait, Greg went down the road, made the mistake, and did virtual audio cables, and I'm like, you really don't want to do that.
Don't ever do that.
No, he knows
No,
because I was
no.
talking to
No,
Matt about it.
Never.
It's a Swiss Army knife. It's great to get something done, but it is not really the tool you're really probably after in the end.
No, I called Steven after attempting that, having just trash going.
Oh
and
wait, what did I say to you? I said our lead engineer Matt says
Yes,
don't
you
go
did.
down that road.
Don't go down that road. I was in the potato and banana.
I said Matt says potato and banana. He goes, what are you talking about? I'm like, trust me.
Greg went into the garden.
This is what
Get
he
out
said.
of the garden.
They went right to the recycle bin, and to be honest with you, though, it's what we talked about last week.
Yeah.
NDI saved the day.
NDI
Period.
worked.
NDI saved the day.
He didn't know. Well, we had to figure. He didn't know about the NDI where we could
No.
do the output and stuff, and it worked. It worked great. The virtual
Perfectly.
camera that's built into the NDI tools. So if you guys are using vMix, that might be another tip of the week we could do.
It's a big one.
Is using the
Huge.
virtual camera in that comes with the NDI suite that you can use with vMix to do virtual audio and video out of vMix.
And
NDI.
it's a savior for capturing desktop audio.
Yep. So that's something that we can work on. Any other questions real quick in the chat room that are coming up? If you guys have any related to what we were talking about or any specific questions for Matt, please let us know. If not, we're going to wind the show down. It's about that time. And again, this is something that we wanted to change it up a little bit from those of you that have watched Broadcast Now in the past. You subscribed to the podcast. There's still 130, 140 episodes that are out there. Now, I will state, somebody asked, they're like, well, you say you're up to 140 or 132 episodes, but you're missing the first 40 episodes. And I want to address that right now. My original co-host back almost 10 years ago, you might have known him. He was on the Twit Network, and I'm not going to say his name, but he passed away unexpectedly. And his family had reached out to me and asked that I'd remove them because it was too painful for them to see it online, any instance. So they were reaching out to different. So I respected that. So that's why the episodes are missing in the beginning. I do have them. They're hidden. But out of respect to them, I had done that. And Walter remembers because Walter's been watching this show since its inception. So he knows that it's legitimately that many episodes. But for those that have been asking, like, hey, how do I go back and watch the originals? That's why those are missing. So I just wanted to put that out there so people know. It's like, no, I'm not making it up. That's why. So, but anyways, onward and upward. I wasn't trying to leave it on a sad note, but I just kind of wanted to address that because I saw a few of those before the show. Questions coming in. So,
Awesome.
Mr. Greg, what do you got going on tomorrow night?
Tomorrow night, PG and Barney show. We're going to have the guest of the year with Mr. Alvin Dyer, 98-year-old legend. It's going to be awesome. Of course, we'll be looking at the contemporary things that are going on around the world, but we're going to nail it down, and we're going to have a good time on Friday Fun Night with that guest and just let him teach us some stuff about his basically century of being on this planet. His memory is perfect. He is a great communicator, and it's going to be an awesome time. You guys want to hop in there? It's at Greg Terry Experience. God bless you.
Check him out over on YouTube, and you guys can check that out. Also, this man, Mr. Marty McPadden, you guys can visit him at podjam.tv. You have some information coming up probably that you'll be able to share?
Maybe here. I don't know. Maybe getting back at it on the road. I don't know. I do. I mean, I'm always working, I'm always editing. Got plenty of clients, got plenty of work, which has been great over the past year. A lot of digital stuff. A lot of people discovered podcasting and video interviews and work with several clients. But yeah, one part of our business was physical events. So I'm kind of we love traveling. We love getting out there. It was a good balance. Just heard from a client that we do events for, and they said, stay tuned. We need to do a phone call next week, give you some updates. So,
oh boy,
we'll see.
It's coming.
Also, we want to thank Mr. Matt Davis, the head engineer over at PTZ Optics, for joining us as well.
Hey, thanks for having me today. This was fun. Yeah, nerdy topics are great.
Oh, absolutely. We love having you on. We'll have to definitely get you back on. If you guys check it out, you like the quality of the cameras that you're seeing, we're using the PTZ Optics cameras, probably a variety of them today as well. You guys can check it out. But I encourage you guys to check out the Super Joy. I mean, I've just been, of all the joysticks I've used, and I have a bunch of them, check it out. If you haven't been able to do so, get a demo of it and have somebody show you how it works, because like I said, it's been a lifesaver for me for out on the road. We talked about the remote production. So guys, I really appreciate everybody being here. You guys can subscribe, go to the Tech Buzz. I'm pretty much there every day. Tomorrow night we have, if you're into retro arcades, tomorrow night we have the Retro Buzz, Glenn and Doug, and we're going to get into some of the rumors that have been going on with Arcade 1-Up and making a baby-cade. I don't quite understand that one, but we're going to talk about it tomorrow. So make sure you guys tune in. We're going to have a lot of fun. We got some more At Games pinball news as well. Guys, we'll see you next week, and we're going to talk about that, how to prep your guests, get things ready. So tune in next week, 6 p.m. Eastern Time, here on the Tech Buzz. Till next time, keep it buzzing.